Okay, so thank you and welcome to the IT Job Board webinar, which is our open web celebration and talk of social recruiting and social media. We've managed to gather together for this hangout an eclectic bunch of varying views and opinions. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Bill Borman. My business is at Bill Borman. I'm probably more commonly known for running the circus that is True, the recruiting unconference, and having some background, having worked with Open Web and Dice and known the Open Web product in its original format, which was the social CV, which was really the first social data aggregator that was launched, invented by none other than Bill Fisher, which is really developed, and I'm really pleased to see been involved in the launch in the US and now with the merger and acquisition of IT Job Board and Dice to see it really integrating with the job board and seeing what can happen in the UK. So we're here to talk about social recruiting and social media. Really, what we think is going to be happening in 2015 to cut away the fact and some of the fiction. So we've got a real mix of practitioners and everything else. If I start from the left-hand side and ask you to introduce yourself, let us know who you are and where you're working, and just give us one thought for what you think is going to happen with social media and recruiting in 2015.
Okay, I'm Bethan. I'm the Regional Head of Recruitment and Employee Engagement at RMS. Based in London, we cover Europe, Asia, Pacific. In 2015, let me have a think. Well, I think we'll see a lot more video. It's already out there, but I think we'll see less of the marketing-driven video. And more pick up a camera and talk to it, so vlogs potentially, which is kind of what we're doing right now.
Okay, and that's on the practitioner side. So jumping over to Hung Lee, who is the CEO and founder of Workshape.io and a recruiter of renown in the past with various startups and originally coming out of IT and agency recruiting. Hung, over to you. Tell us a little bit about you and what you're up to and what your thoughts are for 2015.
Thanks, Bill. 2015, I think social aggregation, as you mentioned, will become ubiquitous. So what I mean by that is it becomes a standard feature of most sourcing tools or candidate most tools directed, I think, towards recruiters will probably have this feature. It's something certainly that in our product we're going to be integrating very shortly.
So jumping on and moving on to Ken. Ken, you're the founder of Winter Court Consulting. I know you've been working very closely with a wide range of startups on tech recruiting and other areas, and you've got a long history, particularly in the games industry. I know, and other people. So, Ken, perhaps if you want to introduce yourself and give us your views for 2015.
Yeah. So thank you, Bill. Run a business called Winter Court Consulting. Effectively, we provide recruitment teams on a project basis to startups, early stage startups. So we build them up to the point of kind of to BAU point, teach them how to recruit, channels, technology implementation, and do all the kind of first round recruitment for them ourselves. So we've been running that business for 2 years, and then about 20 years combined agency and in-house before that. In terms of 2015, two trends, I think. One is increasing fatigue in the candidate space. from a social perspective, and also an increase in silver bullet proposals from a supplier perspective. But I think I was talking, and a big trend in the kind of roles that are being hired in London startup is around DevOps. A whole discussion in itself whether that's a position or just an approach. But I was talking to some guys that I know from a couple of teams I've built over the years, and just asking that question. How do you find a new job? And the route that these guys go through is, well, first off, I would go through my network, then I would go to UKen, which is quite flattering, and then I would wait for an agency to call me. And that's kind of interesting, because I think it mirrors definitely in the UK some of the fatigue I referred to earlier. It mirrors some of that in terms of the chap I was talking to was saying, he will get 20, 30, 40 LinkedIn approaches a week around DevOps positions. So that almost kind of builds a laziness almost, or kind of necessity that kind of they don't have to proactively go out and search. And I saw that very much happen in the early 2000s here around Java recruitment, that kind of people weren't responding to job boards, but they simply don't have to. They can, they know they're going to get an approach at some time. So that's what I refer to on that fatigue side. So when we're looking at new products around aggregation and those kind of good things, that's part of the process, right? Identifying who the people are, but actually getting them to talk to you, that's the challenge.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, for me, having the tools that enable you to do the research, to make sure, first and foremost, you're pinpointing the right person.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not. I think we had for a long time, as recruiters, we had a background of post and pray, which was put stuff out everywhere. And we developed lots of tools to do that, to post far and wide, and started to get a lot of free destinations to do that, and really increase the applicant flow. When we decided to move from source and spray, we got things like LinkedIn and latterly Facebook and all these new data sources, which were masses of people. We moved from post and pray to source and spray, which was if keyword matching, and if someone loosely fits that, send out a requisition or a job or a message to as many people as possible, in the hope that some of it was going to stick. And I think people have just got tired of that. I think that, like you, I'm constantly hearing the message of it's got to be something very, very relevant. I look at it as the 3 R's I'm looking at in terms of sourcing, which is, first of all, you've got to research who your targets are, and be very clear that your targets are in the right place and the right space. Secondly, the message you send them has got to be very relevant to them. And lastly, reference. You've got to give reference as to why you're messaging them. So I think social recruiting to me is advertising to an audience of one, when historically we've advertised to an audience of many. And I can see Lars is on the call. So Lars from Amplified Talent. Some of you may know Lars from Amplified Talent, some from a great history with NPR of building an employer brand with $0, which kind of made you a little bit famous for being the guy to talk about how you can do things without spending money, just investing a bit of time and imagination and a probably overused word, innovation. So, Lars, tell us a little bit about you and what your thoughts are for 2015.
I come from a corporate recruiting background. I've been leading corporate recruiting teams for over 15 years. Left that world about a year ago this month to start my own firm, Amplified Talent. And really I work pretty much at the intersection of corporate recruiting, employer branding, and also search. I think for 2015, I like the points that everybody's raised so far. And I'll probably even take it back a little bit. I think 2015 is going to be all about getting back to basics in relationship-based recruiting. I think people are, with all the tools everyone mentioned, people are easier to find than ever. So people are accessible. Being able to find people is not a challenge. Being able to differentiate your organization and build a relationship and rise above the noise to actually attract that talent is something different. So I think recruiting teams are going to get smarter about things like CRM. I think employer branding will continue to grow and emerge, but that's a popular topic, so let's stay off that for now. But yeah, I think getting back to the roots of really relationship-based recruiting, using some of these tools to help learn about the targets that we're going after, and developing targeted outreach strategies that allow you to speak, again, the one-to-one approach of luring talent and kind of rising above the noise.
Yeah, I think one of the things I see when we talk about going back, and I've been a recruiter for a long time. What I see is we're going back to the old techniques of relationship building. What's changed is the locations where we do that. So what we consider to be a conversation, even a meeting, is done in a very different way, because we very often we're working or communicating over a much wider geography. So I think what's changed, while we're talking about going back to the old relationship techniques, actually what we're going back to is what we now term engagement, which is talking to people and getting to know people, getting on their radar and just making sure they understand us. What's changed is the location of where that might happen. So that may happen in Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or on Skype or via a mobile device. All that kind of stuff is changing, but the actual art of saying this is a one-to-one relationship with someone we've got similar is the way that we recruit when the volumes were very low, and we had to build relationships because candidate from applicant acquisition was very expensive. It cost a lot of money, and you had to work a lot of small numbers. So I would agree with you totally on that. I can also see we've got Stacey on the call now, Stacey Donovan-Zappa, who it's about 5:30 in the morning or something like that where you're from. So thanks for joining us, Stacey. I know you know the open web product quite well, having through association with Dice. It's been a massive year for you over everything that you've done at Zappos, with taking the jobs off the career sites and really getting back to that relationship stuff that Lars is talking about. So Stacey, tell us a little bit about you and what your thoughts are for 2015.
My name is Stacey. It's good to be here with you guys. Good to see some familiar faces on this call. Who am I? I have been a recruiter for about 18 years now, in the trenches. Started in the agency world, went in-house, started my own business a couple of years ago now, doing training and consulting around employer branding, sourcing, talent attraction, all that good stuff. And to answer your question about 2015, Lars totally stole my answer in some ways. I completely tweeted that thing out. Absolutely. Relationship-based recruiting, rising above the noise. That was actually the theme of my SourceCon session this past fall. So good stuff for sure. As far as, yeah, I would agree with that. It's all about targeted personalization, customization, getting people to respond, standing out from all that spam that comes out from recruiters, not just blasting jobs all day. I absolutely hate to, I guess the problem when you go last in this question. I agree with everything that everyone has said. My husband is actually a user experience guy, UX, and to Ken's point, he told me he gets an average of 30 to 40 in-mails a week from recruiters. So if you want to stand out, sending in-mails to people through LinkedIn is probably not a good way to do it unless it's highly customized and you reach out other places as well. So I would just say it's not just about being targeted and sharing a job posting with one person. I would say it's about thinking a little bit and being thoughtful about where you're reaching out as well and how you're doing it. Time and place are so important.
Okay, so you've mentioned time, and we talk time and place. Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that.
I would say, if you reach out to someone maybe on a Sunday night or a Monday morning, perhaps they're more open to hearing from you than if you reach out on a Friday afternoon, for instance. I know people that were doing all their employer branding campaigns on Friday afternoons, and I'm thinking to myself, everyone is thinking about anything except for their job, their company, and their career on a Friday afternoon. So timing is part of it, and then again, like I said, where you reach out is a big factor. Maybe you find them on LinkedIn. Maybe you send them an in-mail, but I certainly wouldn't leave it at that. I would certainly see if they're on Twitter, see if they are, if you can use open web or a social aggregator tool to find their email, if they're on GitHub, if they're on Stack Overflow, what have you, and find them where they are and reach out, stand out in a way that that separates you from the pack and all the other noisy recruiters, if you will.
I guess I'll jump back to Ken for a second, and then Beth Ann afterwards. So Ken, we're talking about all this social engagement and talking to people, but how much do you think is social activity creating noise, and how much do you think is actually useful to you as a hard-nosed recruiter who would love to sit there and tweet all day and engage with people, but you've got seats to fill?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I'm picking up on Lars's point about the relationship-based recruiting. I think that is recruiting, and it should be. But if you look at the kind of why in the first place we introduced technology into recruitment with, say, ATSs, it was because we couldn't cope with the volumes, and that led to a kind of depersonalization of that recruitment relationship, over the years. So I think kind of, when I make an approach to someone on LinkedIn, I think what you're doing to someone is actually trying to show value to them, even if it's not about this job. So it may be that you can help them in other ways. It may be that you can connect them with other people or whatever it might be, so that they will connect to you and talk to you. So I think kind of, when I make an approach to someone on LinkedIn, I think what you're doing to someone is actually trying to show value to them, even if it's not about this job. So it may be that you can help them in other ways. It may be that you can connect them with other people or whatever it might be, so that they will connect to you and talk to you. I think social really is it's a channel that enables those conversations, be that video, be that Twitter, whatever else. I think the challenge for us in using that, though, if we're talking about relationship-based recruiting and harking back to actually what we've been trying to do with this technology is automate, because we just can't cope with the volumes. How do we automate that social and still maintain a kind of relationship-based recruiting approach? And I'm not just talking about the appearance of a bespoke communication, because I think candidates are more sensitive to that now. I think the communications from recruiters, third party or in-house, can vary from here's a job and it's a completely inappropriate job, and because it's been done on a word search basis, up to a kind of crafted, this is why I want to talk to you because of your experience here, here, and here. That's the most meaningful communication, why people would want to connect, I would argue. But how can you automate that, and how can you cope as a recruiter in a situation, to your point, Bill, where you've got 30 recs to fill, and an HRD breathing down your neck to fill them?
Exactly right. So Beth Ann, tell us about what part social plays in connecting and building that presence when you don't have a brand at all.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because I love what Stacey's done in the fact that everyone is going to Twitter, but in order to channel people to our social, you have to engage with them at some point. And if they've never heard of you, then they're not going to find you. And so what we've done, and a few of you said relationship, made my notes here, relationship recruiting, absolutely. What we've done is turned our employees, our RMSers, into brand advocates. We've got a lot of longevity within the organization. We are growing. We're actually a market leader in a sector we helped pioneer, which we're hugely proud of. But outside of insurance and risk, you're not going to hear of us. So we actually ask our employees to connect with those people that we want to, first of all, work with. We only want to work with those people who will make our jobs easier and make us look good. And so they're connected with the best talent out there.
It sounds a lot to me that what you're looking to do is identify audience rather than necessarily applicants and candidates, but you want to make sure that audience is the right people.
It is, and if there's a particular skill set, there's a particular individual that's come across our desk, clearly we'll just go and headhunt that individual if we can. But at the moment for us, it's engagement as well as attraction. Social has certainly helped us. It's part of our toolkit, though.
Yeah, Hung, if I come to you, this is all great stuff. But I can hear a lot of people looking in. This is the IT job board. It's very, very technical people. are the real technical people in social? Are programmers, developers on Twitter doing this kind of stuff?
So
Are
I'm
they?
there. The technical people invented social. There was social
Yeah.
in their own forums in the 1970s. They were in the chat rooms. They built these things and in order to communicate. They may not be doing it on the platforms that we're using, but I absolutely guarantee you they're talking on the places all the time. Open source is a social movement, and it started from tech.
Start from tech, Lars. So
Yeah.
how do we get technical people who may not be the most outgoing to be social in terms of a brand?
Well, I think it's important for organizations to leverage their own technology teams in recruiting. No matter how technically savvy your recruiters are, chances are they're probably not coders. They're not going to understand the technology to the level that your engineers will. And so spending time with them, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes recruiters make, is they don't immerse themselves in their teams enough to really understand where do they hang out, what do they do, what social platforms do they use, what user groups do they use. Find out, embed yourself in those groups to see where they are, and then leverage them to start getting yourself into them, and/or just leverage them to actually do the recruiting themselves, because they're already integrated into those communities. And there's nothing worse than a quasi-technical recruiter trying to call an in-demand technologist and give the Java idea back in the day. Oh, you do the Java? I mean, you have no credibility.
Stacey, I want to jump on because we're coming to the end of the call, but thanks to IT Job Board and Open Web for hosting us. I can see the Mr. Greedy Monk coming up, which is excellent. Stacey, you know Open Web from your experience in the US. You've seen the product as part of DICE for a good while. Why do you think it's useful to recruiters, and what part does it play in social sourcing?
I think, excuse me, I think Open Web is absolutely key for the reasons that I've kind of alluded to up to this point, in that it's really easy, to Lars's point, and to what I've said many times already as well, is that it's really easy to find people now, but it's really hard to get them to respond. And so I think the Open Web tool is a great way for you to see, where do these people live, where do they hang out, which social channels are they active on, what's their email address, how often do people check their LinkedIn inbox, or how often do they check Twitter? I don't know, but how often do they check their work email or their personal email? Probably 20 times a day. So, the beauty of Open Web is seeing where they are, where they hang out, where can you reach out in a way that they will actually respond to you. And this is absolutely key these days. You can't just send an email and cross your fingers and hope someone gets back. Source and spray, as you say, does not work anymore. So this is absolutely an invaluable tool. Social aggregators are absolutely key for 2015, and if you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend it. I live, breathe, and sleep and everything else by these tools as a sourcer. I did actually go back in the trenches this year for 3 months as an active sourcer just to try out these tools. So this is not just theory. This is actual practical application. Yeah. So.
And it's all at the sharp end. So Lars, anything you want to add on Open Web? You're obviously familiar with it from DICE.
Yeah, I've used the platform. My role now, I'm actually getting a little more hands-on in broader recruiting through Amplify than I was leading recruiting teams. That search tended to be more specialized and less tech. I'm doing a little bit more tech now, and I find it. Aggregators, obviously, that's a massive tool. Hung nailed it. The technology is there. When we have these integrated into our ATS platforms, that's going to be a shining moment for recruiting. Don't know when we'll get there, but the ability to go in and, again, personalize message, understand the people that you're reaching out to. Cold calls, recruiters should never cold call, period. Particularly for tech talent that's so in demand. There's just no way you're going to rise above all the chatter they're getting and all the pings they're getting. So a tool like Open Web allows you to get in and really get an understanding of an employee before you reach out, help you find different angles and connections and common threads you might use to personalize that outreach. So there's a ton of value in that.
Great
That's
point,
great.
Lars.
So,
Great point.
I want to jump on. So 30 seconds. We're coming to the end of. I don't want the hangout. I don't want to say show. That sounds a little more glamorous than maybe it is. But one comment from each of you, Beth Ann. Anything you want to add on closing?
I don't know. I think you've heard a lot from me today. I think social is part of our toolkit, but to everyone's point, make it relevant in your communications to your target audience.
Okay, Hung.
I think I've said enough. I think I can't wait to see aggregators become widely adopted. We need to see enterprise ATSs integrate them. We're seeing it even into Outlook and places like that. So, I think 12 months down the line, these things are not going to be talked about again because they'll be so ubiquitous.
Excellent, Ken.
Regardless of the platform, it's a communication thing, and let's communicate in a relevant way with our candidates.
Excellent, Lars.
I think just share what we learned. We're all people that are operating at the leading edge of all these tools and platforms. Our industry as a whole is not. So let's share what we learn and try to bring them along with us.
Okay, anything you want to add?
I would say 2015 is a time to take chances, try new things. It's a time for innovation and taking risks and seeing what pays off. That's the only way to really keep this industry moving forward. So do something that you haven't done before. Take a chance in 2015.
Excellent. So thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks to those of you who have listened in and those of you who'll be watching on the download. And thanks to everyone who's joined in the conversation. It's been a great hour. It's definitely flown by. Thanks to the IT Job Board and Open Web and Bill Fisher for starting the whole journey off with the social CV. Anyone listening in, Tech Recruiting, go and have a look at it. It is your route to personalisation, research and understanding. And thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks all.